Chapter 4384. Sensing that terrifying ancient might pervading in the air, and sensing the powerful and terrifying airflow in the hollow of his palm, the pupils of the leading devil cultivator shrunk, and he immediately shouted, "Quick! Set up the formation!" That sinister voice carried urgency and pressure woke them up. Those devil cultivators who fell on the ground looked towards the leading devil cultivator, then clenching their teeth, they bit their middle finger, and at the same time, blood flowed out. They pressed the blood on their forehead, then one by one, they quickly sat cross-legged, and condensed their hands in front of them to form a seal. Seeing this scene, Xinyuan Mose and Fengjiu looked at each other. The former frowned, while the latter's eyes flashed with contemplation and alertness. They instinctively protected the three children behind them. But in the next moment, they saw a black aura gushing out from between their eyebrows, and gradually, it rapidly condensed between them. Not good. It's the aura of ancient Black Lotus. Fengjiu's complexion changed, and he immediately put down then said to Xinyuan Mose, "You look after the children." The world-destroying aura of ancient Black Lotus was basically not something that Mose could resist. But she was different, as the cyan lotus within her body was even more powerful, so she could contend against it. Seeing this, Xinyuan Mose took the three children and retreated to one side, then looked at Fengjiu condensing his hands, and a flame carrying the aura of cyan lotus advanced towards those devil cultivators. But at this time, the aura of Black Lotus that was drawn out by the blood of those devil cultivators formed into a black figure. Seeing Fengjiu's flame carrying the aura of cyan lotus, that black figure dissipated in front, but in a flash, it scuttled through the flame and pounced towards Fengjiu. Ah! Mournful blood-curdling screams accompanied with the aura of death spread in the air. The flame of Fengjiu pounced towards those devil cultivators, and the raging flame instantly engulfed those devil cultivators, and the blood-curdling screams came from within the flame. However, that black figure condensed from ancient Black Lotus was not affected in the slightest. It did not care about the life and death of those devil cultivators behind it, rather swept through the flame and directly pounced towards Fengjiu. "Be careful," Xinyuan Mose reminded her. He watched as Fengjiu quickly dodged the attack of the black shadow, only to be caught up in it again. The two of them exchanged blows, and the other party was not afraid of her ancient might and powerful aura. This made him a little worried. Looking towards the other side of the palace, the battle there seemed to have not ended. The sounds of fighting could be faintly heard from afar. Could it be that there were only these demonic cultivators tonight? Would the Devil Lord appear? If he did, where would he be now? He furrowed his brows in deep thought as he looked at the burning scene while covering his daughter's eyes. The little girl was not even 3 years old, and she was also a girl. Such a scene would prevent her from having nightmares at night. However, he still underestimated the endurance of the three children. When the three little guys saw this scene, there was no fear in their eyes. They just watched nervously, worried about their mother. "Father, what is that black shadow? Will Mother be able to defeat it?" Worriedly asked, then she reached out her little hand to remove the big hand covering her eyes. Chapter 4385. Just as they were talking, they saw that the black figure in front of them was hit by Fengjiu's green lotus chi. That attack seemed to hit cotton, but in the next moment, that black chi dissipated in the air. A few drops of blood fell from that black chi and dripped to the ground, disappearing into the soil. Fengjiu looked at the dissipating black figure and again looked at his palm. His eyes flashed. He heard Yu's excited and joyful voice coming from behind him. "That's great. Mother won. Mother is so powerful." Fengjiu turned around and saw his daughter's little face brimming with a happy smile. He couldn't help but reveal a smile. However, in the next moment, she was startled by the dense Black Lotus chi that pervaded the air from a distance. Xinyuan Mose saw her expression change. When he followed her gaze, he saw the palace on fire. He didn't know when, but a powerful Black Lotus chi had condensed in the air and was surging over there. Could it be the Demon Lord? He opened his mouth and said, frowning. If it was the Demon Lord, then even if his father and others were there, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Even if it wasn't the Demon Lord with such a powerful Black Lotus chi, If the Black Lotus Chi entered their body, the consequences would be unimaginable. Let's go and take a look, Fengjiu said. He knew that it was impossible to let Mose bring the 3 children back. After all, the person there was his father. Even if it wasn't his father, it was impossible for a man like him to hide in the palace and let her go alone. They wouldn't feel at ease leaving the 3 children in the hands of others to protect. Moreover, she didn't bring many people with her this time. Therefore, the best way was to go together. Even if something happened, they could take care of each other. At that moment, Xianyuan Mose carried Mu Chen and Mu Yu, while Feng Jiu rushed forward and carried Hao. However, when they arrived, they only saw a floor full of corpses, splattered blood, and surging black aura. They didn't see a single living person in the surroundings, whether it was a demonic cultivator, a palace guard, or a shadow guard. "Grandfather is there!" Yu shouted while pointing at the fainted Xianyuan monarch in the corner. "Uncle Hua and Uncle Hui Lang are there, as well as Aunt Shuang." Hao looked at the figures that had fallen in a few corners on the other side. He was worried and wanted to go forward to take a look, but was held down. "Stay by mother's side and don't run around." Xianyuan Mose instructed them to follow Fengjiu closely. Then he quickly went to his father's side and helped him up. At this moment, his body was covered in blood, and there was a faint black aura lingering around his body. He fainted there and did not move at all. For a moment, his heart was in his throat. If the Black Lotus death aura invaded his body, Xianyuan Mose helped his father up and called out, "Father, father, 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 Mose." Several panicked voices suddenly sounded. The 3 children and Feng Jiu looked at this scene in shock, and their expressions changed drastically. Chapter 4386. And that pair of hands seemed to want to stab deeper into that chest, but they were caught by Xianyuan Mose's hand, making them unable to go any further. But even so, this hard blow, moreover, it was such an unguarded blow, and also such a fatal blow, already made Fengjiu and the 3 children so shocked that their hearts were about to jump out. "Demon Master!" Xianyuan Mose's forehead was soaked with cold sweat, and his complexion was also pale. Staring at the person in front of him, he said with certainty. And also at this time, that pair of eyes that were originally closed lifted up, revealing blood-red eyes. It was precisely that pair of bloodthirsty eyes of the Demon Master. At this time, his eyes were filled with madness and excitement, as if looking at the person in front of him, he was already a dead person. Bang! At this moment, Xianyuan Mose saw that pair of blood-red eyes and struck out a palm. But his palm didn't hit him, because at the moment he struck out, the Demon Master had already quickly retreated, and at the same time pulled out that palm that couldn't go any further. "Ha ha ha!" Mose. When the savage and sinister laughter spread in the night, Fengjiu took the 3 children and quickly rushed towards Xianyuan Mose. That Demon Master didn't stop them, and a faint light flashed through his blood-red eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. "Father!" The 3 children's eyes were red, and they worriedly looked at their mother's palm that condensed a cyan-colored aura and covered their father's chest. Gritted her teeth and hatefully stared at that Demon Master. This bad person, who had turned into her grandfather's appearance, injured her father. Mu Chen also angrily stared at that Demon Master. Seeing that there was a knife at the side, he wanted to pick it up and hit that Demon Master, but he was held down by Hao. "Don't run around, don't move, quietly stand there and don't cause trouble for mother." Hao said, staring at that Demon Master, and calmly said, "We can't beat him." Fengjiu used the healing power of the Green Lotus to help Xianyuan Mose heal his wounds. If Mose had not avoided the fatal blow to his heart at the last moment, she was afraid that even if she used the healing power of the Green Lotus to heal him, it would not have been effective. "Don't bother. I won't die." Xianyuan Mose's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. His voice was weak as he said, "He wants you to exhaust the power of the Green Lotus so that he can catch all of us in one fell swoop. Don't fall into his trap. You're heavily injured. I can't just leave you be." Fengjiu said through gritted teeth. When his cold gaze landed on the Devil Lord in midair, his eyes overflowed with killing intent. Today, she was going to destroy this Demon Lord. After all, He had once been defeated by them. Being stared at by Fengjiu's murderous gaze, the arrogant smile on the demon lord's face faded a little. His bloodthirsty eyes were filled with hostility as he stared at her. With a cold snort, the black aura on his body surged, and even the black aura in the air surged. Boom! A rumbling sound suddenly rang out, like a sudden clap of thunder, coming from the clouds. Fengjiu looked up and saw that the vortex that had appeared in the sky earlier was resonating with the black aura below, making a series of rumbling sounds. Fengjiu, you want to destroy me, and I also want to destroy you. From the time I obtained the ancient Black Lotus until now, I have waited so long, worked hard to absorb the aura in the Black Lotus, and cultivated the Black Lotus technique, all for today. Chapter 4387. Fengjiu placed one hand on the chest of Xianyuan Mo's, and used the unceasing regeneration power of Green Lotus to heal his wounds. Hearing the words of that demon master, she sneered, "A loser will always be a loser. Originally, I wanted to let you live for a few more days, but now, you delivered yourself to my doorstep to court death. I will let you taste the feeling of having your soul scattered and never reincarnated." Ha! Demon Master raised his head and laughed heartily. Then, his laughter suddenly stopped, and his gloomy and cold bloodthirsty gaze fell on her body. "Do you think that this monarch will be like that Black Lotus Lord and be exterminated by you? This monarch is not afraid to tell you, this monarch not only obtained the ancient Black Lotus, but also obtained the power of that Black Lotus Lord. You want to exterminate this monarch? Wishful thinking." Just as his voice fell, a black aura condensed in his palm, and he suddenly rushed forward, attacking towards Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mo's. Fengjiu placed one hand on the chest of Xianyuan Mo's, and when she saw that Demon Master was about to attack, killing intent burst out from her eyes. Then she slowly retracted the aura in her palm, and said to the three children behind her, "Look at your father." Finished speaking, she raised her aura, and with a flash of cyan light in her hand, Qing Feng's sword appeared in her hand, and she faced Demon Master in front of her. Xiao! One red and one black figure fought in midair, and the powerful aura fluctuation made the aura of the entire atmosphere become oppressive. Because Xianyuan Mo's and the three children had powerful contract beasts within their body, they didn't feel anything under this oppressive might. Merely, that chaotic airflow was like a blade, making them somewhat worried that those airflow would injure their father. "Father, are you in pain?" Yo looked at him with red eyes, and her small mouth flattened, and tears were spinning in her eyes. "Father is not in pain, you is obedient, don't worry." Xianyuan Mo's complexion was pale, and he said in a weak voice, it was all his fault for being careless. He thought that his father was unprepared, but he didn't expect that Demon Master could already transform into such a real and difficult to distinguish person. His palm moved and a pill appeared in his hand. He struggled to raise his hand and swallow the pill. Who was beside him, hurriedly lifted the pill and brought it to his lips. "Father, medicine." "How?" Said, then quickly took out a mouthful of water. After he took the pill, and fed him a mouthful of clear water, and nervously looked at him. "Father, you will be fine, Mother's medical skill, she is very good, she will cure you." He smiled and comforted them. Of Xianyuan Mo's, and Xianyuan Mo's. His Mo's to Xianyuan Mo's, and leave his heart demon, and Mo's, his heart Mao, leaving his Mo's Ze, and left Aa Mo's. If he hadn't narrowly avoided the position of his heart at that critical moment, perhaps his entire heart would have been taken out. Even if he was strong, but with such an injury, he could only sit here powerlessly. At this time, he saw a stream of airflow coming towards them. Fengjiu was fighting with the Demon Master, and didn't pay attention to this side. When he was about to raise his hand, he heard a childish voice coldly shout, "Qilin! Silver Wolf! Awu!" Mu Chen and Hao shouted coldly, and the ancient mythological beast Qilin and the snow-white silver wolf jumped out from their bodies, blocking in front of them, blocking the danger in front of them. Chapter 4388. Blinked her eyes as she looked at the two majestic Qilin beasts and the snow-white silver wolf in front of her. She had the little fox. Forget it, with the protection of her brother's contracted beasts, she wouldn't let the little fox come out. The demon master who was fighting with Fengjiu caught a glimpse of this scene from the corner of his eyes, and his blood-red eyes flashed. You actually found the ancient Qilin beast. He stared at those children, and a faint light flashed past his eyes, as if he was thinking of something. The sword in Fengjiu's hand was like a green light, attacking towards the demon master's chest, but the demon master dodged it. Therefore, that sword turned in her hand, and a biting cold light slashed across his waist. The sharp sword blade cut open the black robe on his body, and the wound on his waist was so deep that his bones could be seen. Hiss! The demon master sucked in a breath of air. In just a moment of distraction, the side of his waist was cut by the Qingfeng sword. If he hadn't dodged that attack quickly, it was very likely that he would have been cut into two halves. You dare to have ideas about them, this is your end. Fengjiu's cold voice resounded. The attack in her hand didn't stop, and every move was ruthless and full of killing intent. Her strength had recovered to its peak, and the Qingfeng lotus in her body was also a lot stronger, so she wasn't at a disadvantage. However, as the demon master had said, he had inherited part of the Black Lotus Lord's ability, and now his strength had increased greatly. If she wanted to take him down in a short period of time, it was really a bit difficult. But when she thought of the injured Xianyuan Mo's, and then thought of the faint light in the demon master's eyes when he stared at those children, she knew that today, no matter what price she had to pay, she had to kill him here to prevent future troubles. Thinking of this, she threw the Qingfeng sword into the air, and at the same time her body soared into the air, her hands quickly formed a seal in front of her, and at the same time, she shouted in a low voice, "Fire Phoenix!" As soon as she finished speaking, a light flashed and the fire phoenix soared into the sky. It spread its wings and flew a circle before arriving at her feet and allowing her to stand on its back. Fengjiu's spiritual aura surged little by little, and a green light appeared between his eyebrows. Then, a small green lotus emerged from between his eyebrows. With the appearance of the green lotus, the aura of the green lotus spread in the air and gradually expanded. In Fengjiu's space, Emotion, who was meditating in the golden lotus, seemed to have sensed the commotion outside. He opened his eyes and looked outside through the space. The ground was littered with corpses and blood, as well as the injured Xianyuan Mo's and the three children. Looking up, Fengjiu was fighting with the demon master who was emitting the aura of the ancient Black Lotus. Seeing the powerful aura of the Black Lotus on the demon master's body, he slowly sat down cross-legged in the golden lotus and looked at Fengjiu. A gentle voice sounded from the space and entered Fengjiu's ears. "Jiu, I'll help you with the power of the golden lotus." With just one sentence, Fengjiu did not have time to react. She felt a pure and holy aura fuse with the green lotus between her eyebrows. In an instant, she could feel the power of the green lotus growing stronger. At the same time, she raised her eyes and looked forward. She saw that the light of the green lotus was faintly mixed with bits of golden light. Wherever it passed, the aura of the ancient Black Lotus in the air disappeared bit by bit. No. This is impossible. Chapter 4389. Fengjiu looked at him coldly. As her hands moved, a stream of energy gradually formed between her hands. It was a stream of energy that was formed from the green glow of the green lotus and the golden glow of the golden lotus. It was like two sides of a Tai Chi diagram that rotated in her hands and gradually condensed. Since ancient times, evil has never triumphed over good. No matter how strong you are, your final destination is only death. A clear and cold voice slowly came out of her mouth. The fire phoenix under her feet let out a cry and flew towards the demon lord in front of it. It used its body of flames to break through the Black Lotus aura that surrounded the demon lord like a protective shield. Ao! Shio! Wherever the fire phoenix passed, the black stream of energy would scatter to the sides. The black stream of energy that had condensed in front of the demon lord also let out a bang and quickly dispersed because of the unexpected attack. It was also at this moment that Fengjiu's eyes moved. The energy ball that contained the powerful stream of energy in her hands flew towards the demon lord at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. At the same time, she shouted, "Fire Phoenix, dodge!" The Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and flew into the night sky to avoid the attack. In Fengjiu's space, Emo-chan transmitted the aura of his golden lotus bit by bit to Fengjiu. As he continuously released the power of the golden lotus, his body did not gradually weaken like before. Instead, a faint golden holy light appeared. The golden holy light enveloped him. He did not notice the changes in his body, nor did he notice the changes in the golden lotus he was sitting on. With his eyes closed, a golden light quietly appeared between his eyebrows. The golden lotus gradually weakened and disappeared. When it disappeared into the spirit spring in the space, he, who was enveloped by the golden holy light, also disappeared without a trace. Outside, the demon lord saw the energy ball carrying the aura of death coming towards him. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat. He felt the aura of death filling the sky, as if it wanted to devour him. Almost without thinking, he clenched his hands together, and the black lotus that had been hidden between his eyebrows also appeared at this moment. His hands quickly formed a powerful protective shield with the aura of the black lotus. When he saw that the energy flow was blocked by the aura of the black lotus, he finally relaxed and raised his head to laugh loudly. "You want to kill me? It's not that easy." Fengjiu's eyes flashed when she saw this. She flew up and gathered air currents in her hands and pushed them towards the energy ball. An endless stream of air flowed through her body and into the energy ball. She watched as the green and golden light in the energy ball grew stronger bit by bit, swallowing the black air currents bit by bit. She looked up at the Devil Lord in front of her. "Today, you have to die even if you don't want to." That voice, like a summons from hell, entered the Devil Lord's ears and crashed into his heart, causing him to widen his eyes in shock. This was because the protective shield formed by the aura of the Black Lotus was weakening bit by bit. It was as if his protective shield was going to shatter in the next moment. Looking at this scene, and then looking at Fengjiu's cold, murderous aura and monstrous aura, the Devil Lord's originally terrified heart gradually calmed down. He stared at her and revealed a strange smile. "I know why you can't wait to kill me." Chapter 4390. Looking at the strange smile on his face, Fengjiu frowned. He had a bad premonition. Immediately, he injected spiritual power into the energy ball in his palm again, wanting to break the demon lord's defensive shield as soon as possible and kill him. "Fengjiu." The demon lord stared at her, revealing an inexplicable smile. "This lord has fought with you for so long, and I thought that I would kill you all." At that time, this lord would become the supreme ruler of the 6 realms, but I didn't expect that you would come back again and become my stumbling blocks, hindering this lord from becoming the supreme ruler of the world. Before this lord obtained the Black Lotus of Destruction, I was no match for you. After this lord obtained the Black Lotus of Destruction, obtained the power hidden in the Black Lotus, and cultivated the Black Lotus technique, this lord always felt that this time, even if you and Shenyuan Mo's joined forces again, you would still be no match for this lord. However, in order to prevent any accidents, this lord decided to kill one of you first, but unexpectedly, your luck is always so good. His blood-red eyes swept past Fengjiu and fell on Shenyuan Mo's. Just a little bit more, and Shenyuan Mo's heart would be dug out. Just a little bit more. Perhaps, from the moment the ancient golden lotus fell into your hands, this lord was destined to always lose to you. But He smiled sinisterly, staring at Fengjiu, and said, "Since this lord will lose to you no matter what, then this lord will give you a big gift even if it means sacrificing my life." Fengjiu's heart sank and asked, "What do you want to do?" You will know soon." He no longer used the power of the Black Lotus of Destruction to protect the defensive shield. Instead, he tore open his shirt, revealing his chest that was covered in old wounds. His blood-red eyes stared at Fengjiu with a hint of madness in them. He used his finger to pierce his own heart, offering the blood of his heart as a sacrifice. Blood gushed out from his heart, dripping bit by bit. However, it did not drip to the ground. Instead, every drop of blood condensed under his feet, connecting together as he drew a strange imprint with his finger that was stained with his heart's blood, releasing powerful black light. In the air, the chi of the Black Lotus, which had been weakening, began to surge under the effect of his heart's blood. The chi of death on the corpses on the ground was sucked into the strange formation, and the Black Lotus in between the demon lord's eyebrows also flew out of his body and hovered in front of him. A powerful airflow surged in the air, whistling, and a gust of wind suddenly rose, whistling. In the corner below, the Qilin beast and the silver wolf stood in front of the three children and Xianyuan Mo's, blocking the powerful airflow for them. The gust of wind blew, and the robes of the corpses on the ground fluttered. Even the corpses seemed to show signs of being blown by the strong wind blade. Hao held the two children in his arms, half lying on the ground, so that they would not be blown away by the strong wind blade because of their small size. They looked up and saw the two airflows in front of them colliding with each other, stirring up countless airflows. Suddenly, the blood under the demon lord's feet seemed to have a life of its own. With a flash of light, it moved from under his feet to the side of the sky, forming a strange formation in the sky like stars. Chapter 4391. The dark aura on his body surged, and the bloodthirsty smile on his lips was strange and fierce. His voice was sinister and crazy. I will make you beg for what you want but can't get it. I will make you lose what you value the most. I will make you live in pain and regret. Ha! He raised his head and laughed wildly. A gust of wind surged around him. The next moment, his hands formed a complicated seal. His blood-red eyes stared at the three children. Immediately, the figures of the three children were sucked up by the blood formation. They flew to the front of the strange formation and were fixed in the heart of the blood formation. Ah! Mother! 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 The three children exclaimed and waved their hands and feet, but they could not break free from the power that fixed them in place. Seeing this, the snow wolf and the Qilin beast rushed forward to save them, but the blood formation flashed and sucked them into the bodies of the two children. How to... Fengjiu exclaimed and her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to turn back to save them, but found that she could not withdraw her hand from the energy ball. It was as if she was sucked in by a force and could not move at all. Fire Phoenix! Fengjiu shouted anxiously and asked the Fire Phoenix to go down and save them. However, when the Fire Phoenix rushed down to the blood formation, it was also repelled by the powerful blood formation and could not get close. Master, I can't get close. The blood formation is an ancient evil formation. It is driven by the blood of his heart and protected by the aura of the Black Lotus of Destruction. I can't get close. The Fire Phoenix said anxiously. Seeing the three children there, but unable to do anything, she could not help but feel anxious. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo struggled to stand up, but fell down powerlessly. Seeing the three children trapped in the blood formation, he immediately called, Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon flew out of his body. Without his command, it also tried to break the blood formation. However, it could not shake the ancient blood formation at all. This is an ancient blood curse formation. Even if it's us, we won't be able to break through it. The Azure Dragon's deep and majestic voice rang out in the air. It stared at the demon lord within the defensive barrier. In the next moment, it let out a low roar and rushed towards the defensive barrier. The dragon's body coiled around the defensive barrier, wanting to use its own strength to break the demon lord's defensive barrier. Since the blood array couldn't be broken, as long as he could break the defensive barrier and kill him, the blood curse ancient array would naturally disappear. However, the demon master laughed softly. It's useless. Today, even if you combine all your strength, you won't be able to stop what I want to do. He stared at Fengjiu and said word by word, I offer my heart's blood as a sacrifice. I'll break the bond between you and your child and curse your child so that he will never remember anything related to you in this lifetime. In the 3,000 worlds, you will never meet again in this lifetime. As his voice fell, the blood of his heart gushed out from his chest and sprayed on the Black Lotus. At the same time, the rotating Black Lotus flew out with a whoosh and fell into the ancient blood formation. At the same time, a dark light surged and a devilish black hole appeared. It swallowed the 3 children and the Black Lotus at a speed that was too fast for anyone to react to. Father, mother. Mother! Mother! How? Chapter 4392. Bang! Boom! Boom! Crack! Boom! The demon lord's soul was destroyed and turned into ashes, dissipating between heaven and earth. The black aura in the air also dissipated with the death of the demon lord. The remaining aura of the Black Lotus in the air was gradually purified by the radiance of the green lotus and the specks of golden light until not a trace of it could be found. How to? Fengjiu, who had fallen to the ground, screamed at the top of his lungs. However, he only had time to see the ancient blood array disappear along with the aura of the Black Lotus. Seeing the 3 children disappear in front of her, she stood up and her figure swayed slightly. She only felt darkness in front of her eyes. Xianyuan Mose was so anxious that he spat out a mouthful of blood. He raised his hand and looked at the sky where the 3 children had disappeared. His lips moved slightly, but in the end he could not hold on and fainted. My children, Fengjiu murmured. His legs gave way and he fell to the ground, staring blankly at the disappearing sky. The moment the demon lord's words fell, she felt as if the bond between her and the 2 children had been severed. In an instant, her heart was filled with fear, as if she had lost her most precious treasure. She was terrified and helpless. Master Fire Phoenix came to her side. Seeing the trace of blood at the corner of her mouth and the fainted Yama Lord, she said, "Master, don't worry. We will definitely find a way to find the little masters." Azure Dragon wanted to say something, but in the end he did not say anything. He just came to Xianyuan Mose's side. Seeing that he had fainted, he looked back at Fengjiu and said, "Fire Phoenix is right. Even if it's the blood curse ancient array, there will definitely be a way to break it. Moreover, each of them has a powerful contracted beast. Even if they are wandering alone, they will be fine. Now, let's deal with the matter here first." At least, the demon lord was dead, and the ancient Black Lotus had lost its power and disappeared between heaven and earth. This should be a good thing. As for the 3 children, even if they were stranded outside, they would definitely be found one day. Hearing their words, Fengjiu gradually calmed down. That's right. They have contracted beasts with them. Even if they are wandering outside, they will be fine. I have to deal with everything here first before I think of a way to find them. Stabilizing her mind, she wiped away the blood from the corner of her mouth and quickly walked to Xianyuan Mose's side. At this time, the sky was still rumbling, the powerful tremors shaking the entire world. Yi, who had gone to carry out his mission, rushed back as fast as he could when he found out that something had happened in the palace. However, when he brought the people of Yandian back to the palace, he only saw the tragic scene. Master, madam. Yi quickly stepped forward. When he saw Fengjiu helping his seriously injured master up, he hurriedly helped to support him. He looked around and saw that among the corpses on the ground, there were demonic cultivators and familiar shadow guards. He clenched his fists tightly. "Madam, I'm sorry, I came back late. The devil cultivators were causing trouble everywhere." He was ordered by his master to carry out his mission in Yandian, but he did not expect to see such a scene when he returned. Chapter 4393. Yes. Yi replied. He looked around but didn't see the 3 little masters. Thinking that they might be in a safe place, he didn't think too much about it. He immediately led his men to check if there were any survivors. He also carried the severely injured Leng Hua and the others into the hall. Finally, under the bodies of several secret guards, they found the unconscious emperor of Xianyuan Kingdom. "Quick, take them all back to the hall," Yi ordered. He quickly mobilized his men and sent a message to Du Fan and the others, asking them to come quickly. After everything was arranged, he saw the Azure Dragon and the Fire Phoenix perched on the roof of the hall. Seeing the 2 ancient mythical beasts silently looking at the night sky, he felt strange. He thought that they were worried about the chaos in the palace, so he said, "You don't have to worry. Now in all the realms, except for the evil spirit cultivators, No one dares to provoke Master and Madam. The Azure Dragon glanced at him and didn't say anything. The Fire Phoenix also glanced at him and didn't say anything. Perhaps because of the heavy atmosphere, he asked, did the Devil Lord escape or die? The situation in the palace was so tragic. Did the Devil Lord escape or die? The Devil Lord is dead. The power of the Black Lotus was used up and it withered and disappeared. The Fire Phoenix said, squatting on the roof of the palace, watching the rumbling in the sky gradually calm down. The dark clouds dispersed, and a little starlight appeared in the night sky. She said, the three little masters are also gone. Hearing this, Yi's face changed. What do you mean? Aren't the three little masters in a safe place? How could they be gone? The Fire Phoenix knew that its master didn't want to talk about the disappearance of the three little masters, so it told him everything that happened tonight. Finally, it said, only when Du Fan and the others came did you tell them to comfort my master, lest she be too worried. Seeing that there was no one else, Yi asked, but doesn't Madam have the space? Why didn't she send the three little masters into the space? If I had sent it into the space, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Hearing this, the Fire Phoenix's gaze sharpened. She swept a cold glance at Yi. Are you blaming my master? I don't mean to blame Madam, because I know that Madam cares about the safety of the three little masters more than anyone else, Yi lowered his eyes and sighed. He just didn't expect such an outcome. In his opinion, perhaps, such an outcome could have been avoided. Fire Phoenix coldly snorted and said, in this world, no one cares more about the safety of the three little masters than the master. However, under such circumstances, it was impossible for the master to send the three little masters into the space. He also didn't expect such a result. Now that it has happened, it's not time to look into the problem, but to find a way to solve it. Hearing that, Yi's eyes lit up. The three young masters all have communication jades. Maybe it won't be hard to find them. Saying this, he turned around and walked into the palace, saying, I'll go to the palace and have a look. When Du Fan and the others come, we'll try it together. Seeing him leave quickly, the Fire Phoenix didn't say anything. She glanced at Azure Dragon and asked, what do you think? Chapter 4394. The Fire Phoenix snorted in annoyance and said, I know that the ancient blood curse is not that simple, that's why I'm asking you if you have any ideas? The Azure Dragon said. Then can we find them and bring them back? The Fire Phoenix asked uncertainly. I don't know. The Azure Dragon narrowed his eyes. If you don't know, then why did you say that to my master? The Fire Phoenix's temper flared up and it roared at the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon glanced at it and said, didn't you also comfort her in the same way? Hearing this, the Fire Phoenix felt its breath stuck in its throat and it couldn't move up or down. It took a deep breath and its body flashed and it turned into a ray of light and flew towards the palace. Du Fan and the others arrived at the palace in the middle of the night. When they arrived, the first person they saw was Yi. When they saw Yi, they strode forward and asked, what happened? Why did you ask us to rush over in such a hurry? Yi looked at them and said, the demonic cultivators are causing trouble everywhere. I was ordered to go to the Hall of Hell to arrange a mission. When I came back, I found out. He told them everything that happened tonight and finally said, I didn't experience it and I didn't see it with my own eyes. What I know is what the Fire Phoenix told me. Hearing this, everyone gasped and their faces were full of disbelief. So not only are the Yama Lord and the others seriously injured and unconscious, but the three young masters are also missing? Yi replied and said, I just went to the palace to take a look. Madam is treating the master's injuries and the others are being taken care of by the palace's doctors. He looked at Fan Lin and Qin Exen and said, you have medical skills. It's best if you go and take a look at Leng Hua and the others. Their injuries are very serious and I'm afraid that ordinary medicine won't be able to cure them. Take us to see them first. Fan Lin said to Yi and then said to Du Fan and the others, go and take a look at the master. Qin Exen and I will go and see Leng Hua and the others first. Du Fan thought for a moment and said, we'll go with you. Let's take a look at Leng Hua and the others first. After that, the two of you stay here. We'll go to Master's place. All right. Fan Lin looked at Ing Yi and motioned for him to lead the way, and the group hurried inside. When they arrived at where Ling Hua and the others were and saw the wounds all over their bodies, they couldn't help but feel their hearts in their mouths. In order to take care of them, Ling Hua and Hui Lang were arranged to be in the same room. There were countless wounds on their bodies, but the most fatal ones were not the visible ones on their bodies, but the invisible ones inside their bodies. The doctors in the palace have seen them and said that the visible injuries on their bodies were not fatal. What made them on the verge of death were the invisible injuries in their bodies. I have already let them take the Niden to preserve their life force. Ing Yi said, retreating to the side. Fan Lin said to Qin Exin, go and check on Leng Shuang. Leave this to me. Qin Exin responded and went to the other room next door. The two of them had followed Feng Jiu for a long time, so their medical skills were not bad. Most importantly, they had a lot of panaceas. Therefore, after checking the serious injuries in their bodies, they fed them a life-saving elixir. After checking on them, Du Fan and the others saw that Fan Lin and Qin Exin were there. They left first and went to the place where their masters were. However, when they learned that the three little masters had disappeared without a trace, their hearts were very heavy. Chapter 4395. On the other side of the palace, Feng Jiu slowly retracted her hand and watched as the wound on Xianyuan Mo's chest healed at a visible speed. Only then did she let out a soft sigh and leaned against the headboard to rest. She stared blankly at Xianyuan Mo, who hadn't woken up yet. She closed her eyes to rest and her body gradually relaxed. However, the moment she closed her eyes, she seemed to have sensed something and suddenly opened her eyes. Emotion! She called out but received no response. She then flashed into the space. When she saw that the golden lotus in the spiritual spring had disappeared, she was slightly startled, then relieved. He once said that when the golden body was completed, the golden lotus and he would disappear at the same time and return to his master's side. Although she did not know what had triggered him and caused his golden body to be completed earlier, at least this was a good thing. She turned and left the space. She heard the voices of Du Fan and the others outside, so she walked out and sat down in the outer room. She poured herself a cup of water and called out, "Come in." Du Fan and the others outside heard her voice and looked at each other before walking in. They pushed the door open and walked in. They saw their master sitting at the table drinking water. She had not had time to change her clothes and she looked slightly tired. "Master, we are late." They all knelt down at the same time. "Get up," Feng Jiu said as she put down the cup in her hand. She said, "Even if you are here, what can you stop? All of this will still happen." Hearing this, they looked at each other and stood up. "Master, we will definitely find the three young masters." Feng Jiu did not speak. She poured another cup of water and drank slowly. No one knew what she was thinking. Seeing that she did not speak, Du Fan and the others were worried. Thus, Du Fan asked, "Master, how is the Yama Lord's injury?" "The injury is no longer serious, but he has not woken up yet. You can go and take a look," Feng Jiu said. "Then let's go in and take a look at the Yama Lord." They walked inside and saw that the Yama Lord was lying on the bed. His breathing was calm and his wounds had healed. Only then did they turn around and leave. "Master, you should rest first. We'll take care of the rest," Du Fan said, looking at her. "All right, go ahead." Feng Jiu didn't say anything else, or rather, he didn't have the strength to say anything else. Each of them was capable of handling matters. As long as they came over, they would know what to do without any instructions. Du Fan, Qi Kong, and the others retreated while Bai Qingqing and Yi Feifei stayed behind. They saw that she hadn't changed her clothes or treated her wounds, so they prepared a bath for her. "Mistress, you should take a bath first. The wounds on your body need to be treated as well," Bai Qingqing said as she looked at her worriedly. "I got it. You guys can leave now," Feng Jiu said as she asked them to leave. She walked towards the big bathtub in the cubicle, took off her clothes, and sank her whole body into the water. Outside, Yi Feifei looked into the room worriedly and whispered, "Is Mistress really okay? She doesn't seem to be in a good condition." Bai Qingqing sighed softly. The three young masters are missing. How can she be in a good condition? But don't worry too much. Mistress will adjust. Chapter 4396. The sky was gray and the sun had not risen yet. In a mortal world far away from here, in a forest deep in the mountains, Hao, Muchen, and Muyu were sleeping on the grass. Because of the hazy sky and the fact that they were deep in the mountains, several gray wolves noticed the three of them. They bared their teeth and drooled as they approached step by step. However, they seemed to have sensed something and suddenly stopped and howled. Awoo! The wolf's howl rang out in the deep mountains and old forests, echoing in the air and dissipating with the breeze. Not long after, a wolf king leaped over and landed steadily beside the three children. It sniffed carefully and finally bent its front hooves and knelt down, letting out a low howl. Seeing the wolf king kneel down, the few wolves behind it also knelt down and whimpered softly. Perhaps because the wolf's howl rang in their ears, Hao was the first to regain consciousness. Lying on the grass, he opened his eyes. For a moment, there was confusion in his eyes. Awoo! Hearing the wolf's howl, he quickly sat up and saw 7 or 8 wolves surrounding him. There was also a larger wolf king. At this moment, they were all kneeling on the ground and looking at him. Go away! He shouted coldly and waved a branch at the side. The wolves were shocked and quickly retreated. They quickly left and hid in the grass far away to stare at him. Seeing the wolves leave, Hao then looked at the 2 identical children lying beside him. Looking at their delicate little faces, an image seemed to flash across his mind. However, he had a splitting headache. He screamed and covered his head, not daring to think about it anymore. He sat beside them and looked at the 2 of them. Seeing that they were still unconscious and could not remember who he was? Why was he here? Thus, he rummaged through the things on his body. Finally, he saw 3 words engraved on a small delicate lock on his neck. Xinyuan Hao? That was his name? Xinyuan Hao? He whispered softly. It sounded very familiar. He thought that this should be his name. His gaze fell on the 2 little ones. He glanced at their necks and saw that there seemed to be something similar to his, so he went forward and used his fingers to take a look. Xinyuan Muken, Xinyuan Muyue? He looked at the small words engraved on it and then saw that the 2 of them were wearing the same thing as him. He thought for a moment and nudged them. Wake up, hurry up and wake up. The 2 little guys slowly opened their eyes and sat up. They looked at each other and then looked at Hao in front of them with a confused expression. Do you still remember anything? Hao asked with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. The 2 little guys thought about it and shook their heads. I have a headache. You? Pouted and patted her little head. Me too, said Muchen. He looked at him and asked, Who are you? Who are we? Why are we here? Seeing that they were the same as him, Hao was silent for a while before saying, I can't remember either, but the little lock pieces on our necks have names, and they are all the same. I think I should be your older brother. Big brother? The 2 little fellows looked at him and called out. Hao nodded and said, I'm Xinyuan Hao. You're Xinyuan Muchen and Xinyuan Muyu. Chapter 4397. Muchen glanced at her. You are the younger sister. Pouted and unhappily looked at him. You are the younger sister. Muchen patted her little head. Younger sister. Seeing this, blinked her beautiful eyes and no longer tangled on this point, rather looking at her 2 elder brothers, with a trace of blankness in her immature voice, she asked, But what about our father and mother? Where is our home? Hao and Muchen fell silent. Because they didn't know either. They kept feeling that some memories in their minds were missing. Whenever they tried to recall, they would have a splitting headache. The only thing they could do was to find the answer from them, but it was still difficult for them to do so at such a young age. In the end, it was the older Hao who stood up first. Let's find the way. Follow me and don't get lost. Yes, yes. The 2 little guys nodded, each holding his hand. After watching the 3 of them leave, the Wolf King, who was hiding in the distance, finally walked out. It looked at the 3 of them leaving, thought for a moment, and quietly followed them from a distance. After all, they were only 3 children. It was not easy to get out of the deep forest. They walked around for a whole day and still could not find the way out. Instead, they found a cave where they could rest. The sky outside gradually darkened. The 3 children huddled in the cave and looked at the dark place. Tightly grabbed Hao-er's clothes. Brother, is scared. Although Mu-chen did not say anything, his body shrank closer to Hao. Don't be afraid. I will protect you. With me here, it will be fine. He hugged the 2 of them and hugged them to his side. Looking at the darkening sky outside, his eyes were filled with worry. But it's so dark. Is afraid of the dark. She huddled in his arms and whispered. Afraid of the dark? Something seemed to flash through Hao-er's mind. He suddenly stopped and looked at his hand. He saw a black ring on his finger. He had tried to take it off in the morning, but he couldn't take it off. However, the thing that flashed through his mind made him stunned for a moment. I seem to have thought of something. As he spoke, he touched the ring on his finger and suddenly said, Night Pearl. As soon as he finished speaking, a fist-sized bead appeared in his hand. Looking at the luminous night bead that suddenly appeared, the 3 children were stunned, their faces full of astonishment. Big brother, how did you come out? Curiously asked, and looked at him with a novel expression. I don't know. I just felt that there was something that could light up the place. I shouted and it came out. Hao-er was also taken aback. However, as he looked at the luminous pearl, some images flashed across his mind. The luminous pearl in his hand fell to the ground as he hugged his head tightly. It hurts. It hurts? Big brother, big brother. The 2 little fellows panicked when they saw this. They called out to him, and their voices were tinged with tears. Outside, the Wolf King, who had been following them for a day, threw a pheasant into the cave with its mouth. Seeing the 3 human children in a mess, it wanted to go forward, but it saw the little boy pick up a stone and throw it at it. Go away. Go away. Don't come in. Go away. Chapter 4398. The Wolf King, who had wanted to go in to take a look, helplessly stopped in its tracks. It only pushed the dead pheasant inside before retreating to stand guard outside the cave. Inside, was in so much pain that cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. He could not hear Mu-chen and Mu-yu's voices. He hugged his head with both hands and cried out in pain. He could only feel the pain in his head as if it was about to explode. He screamed in pain, the veins on his neck bulging. His whole person seemed to be in extreme pain. Big brother, it doesn't hurt. Will hug you. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Cried like a kitten, but still clumsily stretched out her small hands to hug the struggling Hao-er tightly. Mu-chen also hugged him tightly, afraid that he would kick and hurt his head. The 2 little guys had never encountered such a situation and did not know what to do. They could only hug their brother and call out to him until he fainted after a long time. Brother, big brother has fainted. Wiped away the tears on her face and looked at Hao-er's pale and sweaty face under the illumination of the night pearl. It's okay. He'll be fine in a while. Mu-chen said as he supported Hao-er's head with one hand and let his head rest on his thigh. He said to you, sister, go get the water in the corner. You? Responded and quickly got up. She ran to the corner and brought the water she brought back from outside to her 2 brothers. The water was in a bamboo tube, cut from the bamboo with a dagger tied to Hao-er's leg. The 2 little guys carefully fed him some water and sat by his side to watch him. Brother, when will big brother wake up? Held the night pearl in her hand and looked helplessly at Mu-chen with her beautiful eyes. I don't know either. Mu-chen said and thought for a while, then said, maybe big brother will wake up after sleeping. Hearing this, Yu did not speak again. Instead, she looked at the unconscious Hao and then at the dead pheasant that was thrown in by the wolf. Even if they wanted to eat it, they didn't know how. Therefore, even if the dead pheasant was placed in front of them, the 2 little guys couldn't do anything. Perhaps it was because they were really tired from the day. As they sat there, they fell asleep. The next morning, before they woke up, Hao, who was resting his head on Mu-chen's calf, slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, there was no confusion in his eyes, only a calm light that was different from other children his age. As he slept, he looked at the two little faces beside him and was startled. He hurriedly sat up and looked at the two little fellows who were covered in dirt and sleeping soundly against the wall. He could not help but feel a tug in his heart. "Father, mother," that in deep sleep, murmured. This made Hao, who was about to stand up, pause for a moment as he recalled those scenes in his mind. "Father, mother." You, cried out in alarm and jumped up. Opening her eyes, she saw Hao, standing in front of her. Seeing that he had already woken up, she happily threw herself forward. "Big brother, you're awake? Are you feeling better? Does your head still hurt?" The little one hugged him tightly and asked several questions in a row. Chapter 4399. Without their parents by their side, their older brother had become their pillar of support. The two were very dependent on him. Hao hugged you, and gently patted her back, comforting her. "It's okay, I'm fine. Don't worry." "But you scared us to death last night. You, and Big Brother kept calling you, but you didn't hear." Saw that the veins on your neck were bulging, as if you were in pain. Pouted, and her eyes were slightly red. It's okay. Big Brother is fine. It's my fault for making you worry." As he spoke, he looked at the two of them and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Little brother, little sister, I just remembered something." The two little guys widened their eyes. Big Brother remembered? Why did Big Brother remember, but we didn't? Hao held Yu's hand and sat down. He looked at the two and said, "I guess it's because of our bloodline. My bloodline is different from yours." "How is it different? Aren't you our brother?" The two little guys asked, puzzled. "I was adopted by father and mother. You two are biological, so your bloodline is naturally different." Hao continued, "As for the other reasons, I don't know. Moreover, I only remembered some things, but I didn't remember everything." "Then who are our parents? Where are they?" Mu-chan hurriedly asked. Hao glanced at him, shook his head and said, "I don't know. I can't remember. I only know that our parents were very powerful, but I can't remember their faces or their names. However, I know that they taught me how to read, write, and cultivate." Hao was slightly startled as he spoke. Scenes flashed through his mind. Those gentle and loving voices were very clear in his memory, but when he wanted to see their faces clearly, he couldn't see anything. "Then what should we do? Are we unable to find our way home? Father and mother will be worried if they can't find us." Yu's soft voice carried a trace of helplessness, looking pitiful. "It's okay. Big Brother will protect you. Big Brother will bring you home." Hao held their hands with a serious expression on his little face. "I will definitely remember everything." There were some things that he didn't tell them. It was the last part of his memory. That demon lord had sent them into an ancient blood curse array. Those vicious words were still echoing in his ears. He thought that the reason why Chinra and Yu didn't want to come must be because they were his parents' flesh and blood. The blood curse had sealed their memories, making them unable to remember. Moreover, in his memory, they were able to cultivate, but from the moment he woke up, he discovered that the spiritual power in his body was extremely weak, and he couldn't find a trace of Chin and Yu. He did not know what had caused this, but at the very least he could still sense the aura of spiritual energy. That was enough, because in that spatial ring, there were things that could be used to contact their parents, as well as many life-saving things that his mother had given him. Chapter 4400. Here, eat a fruit. He handed the fruit to each of them. The two little guys looked at him taking out a few fruits from that dusty ring and couldn't help but widen their eyes in curiosity. Mu-chan looked at the ring on his finger and asked, "Big brother, do I also have fruits in this ring?" Hao glanced at his space ring. Perhaps because his spiritual power was sealed, his space ring was also dusty without the slightest luster. The difference was that his ring still had a trace of spiritual power, while Mu-chan's was completely undetectable. Your spiritual power should be sealed. As long as you unseal it, You can also take things out from the space ring. How? Explained. Then what about me? You quickly asked, why don't I have it? Yours is here. He pointed to an inconspicuous small bracelet on her wrist and said, your things are all in here. You have to remember, you can't lose anything on your body. Those are all given to us by our parents. Also, the space ring and space bracelet, you can't tell anyone about them. This morning, Hao told them a lot of things and also taught them a lot of things. When he heard their stomachs growling, he said, let's stay here like this for now. Wait for me to cultivate for a few days and increase my strength a little, then I'll take you out. The two little guys nodded in agreement. Big brother, last night, that wolf brought that dead chicken here. You pointed to the already stiff chicken at the entrance of the cave and whispered, you wants to eat meat, but you doesn't know how to cook. She lowered her head and played with the corner of her clothes with her little fingers. How? Thought for a while and gritted his teeth. Let me try. Hearing this, the two little guys' eyes lit up. Big brother knows how to cook? I've seen mother cook and also eaten her roast chicken. It's very delicious. How? Revealed a smile and immediately brought them outside. Once they were outside, even if the wolves were hiding in the dark, How? Could still detect them at a glance. He looked at the pheasants that had already stiffened at the entrance of the cave, and then at the wolves that were hiding. He thought for a while and said, catch me 2 more pheasants. Fearing that the wolves wouldn't understand him, he walked to the entrance of the cave and waved the stubborn pheasant. This one. When the 2 little fellows heard his words, they couldn't help but look at each other. Just as they were puzzled, they heard rustling sounds coming from the forest. Then, a few wolves scurried away. Not long after, they came back with 2 freshly killed pheasants. Big brother, how come those wolves listened to your words? You? Curiously asked. How smiled and said, my contracted beast is a silver wolf. They must have sensed the aura of the Wolf King on me. All right, let's go pick up the branches. He took the 2 little fellows to pick up some branches in the surroundings. When the wolves saw them picking up branches, they also helped them to bite some branches. How? Cleaned the 2 pheasants at the water source he found yesterday and directly skinned them. He then carried them back and roasted them. However, he didn't do this kind of thing often, so the 2 pheasants were roasted black. Chapter 44:01. Can we eat the meat inside? Let's just eat the meat inside. Mu-chan pointed at the 2 charred chickens. How? Looked at it and used a dagger to cut off the charred outside, then cut the meat inside for them to eat. Try it. Took it and handed it to you, first, then took a piece and ate it himself. It's delicious. Said happily and ate in small bites. She held it in one hand and blew on it with her mouth. It's delicious. Mu-chan nodded. How? Cut off a piece and ate it. However, as soon as it entered his mouth, he tasted the charred taste and the dry taste of the meat. It was very hard, and there was no seasoning, so there was nothing but the charred taste. It was very difficult to eat. He looked at Mu-chan and Mu-yu eating with relish and his heart tightened. His eyes couldn't help but redden. In order not to let them find out, he lowered his head and bit the charred meat in his mouth while swallowing back his tears. Even if his memory was not fully awakened, he knew that they were of noble birth and had a good life. But now, he let his brother and sister starve to the point that they could only eat this charred chicken. Don't eat it. There are still pastries and a small piece of jerky in the space. He reached out and took the meat in their hands and threw it into the extinguished fire. The 2 little guys looked at him and saw that his eyes were slightly red. They couldn't help but ask worriedly, Big brother, what's wrong? Eat this. This can't be eaten. Throw it away and don't want it. He threw away the 2 burnt chickens and stuffed the pastries wrapped in paper into their arms, along with a small piece of jerky. Looking at the things in their bosom, the 2 little fellows hesitated for a bit, then you, softly said with her immature voice. But, we can't go out, are we going to wait until we are very, very hungry to eat these? It's okay. Eat it first. We'll think of a way after eating. He said and let them eat. Seeing this, the 2 little guys looked at each other. So, Chen divided the small piece of jerky into 3 pieces and handed one piece to Hao. Big brother, you eat too. As he spoke, he took some pastries for him. I don't eat jerky, I only eat few pieces of pastries. Hao said, then handed over the jerky to you. Eat. You doesn't want to eat, big brother eat. Shook her little head and pushed back. Big brother, eat. Let's share it. Ch looked at him and said. Hao shook his head and said, this piece of jerky isn't ordinary jerky. It's spirit beast meat. Eating it will be good for your body. He divided his piece of jerky into 2 portions and handed it to the 2 of them. Eat this and see if you can stimulate the spiritual power in your body. I'll give you some pills later. The 2 little guys looked at each other. Seeing that he didn't want to eat, they took the jerky and asked, Big brother, will we be able to go back to find father and mother after we have spiritual power? Hearing them mention father and mother, a picture flashed through Hao's mind. He came back to his senses and said, you and I are the same. Both of you have contract beasts. But your spiritual power is sealed. So contract beasts can't come out. If you can restore your spiritual power and let contract beasts come out, perhaps we can think of a way to go back earlier. Then can Big Brother's contract beasts come out? You? Curiously asked. Chapter 44:02. Seeing their faces turn gloomy, he hurriedly comforted them. But mother gave me a lot of medicinal pills. Maybe some of them can come in handy. As he spoke, he hurriedly took out some small bottles from his space and rummaged through them. When the 2 little guys saw so many beautiful little bottles, they also went forward to take a look. Muchen picked up one and saw the words, hemostasis powder, written on the bottle. He picked up another one and found that these beautiful little bottles were printed with 2 words below them. Ghost Doctor? Muchen softly read it out. He recognized these 2 words, and when he said them, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Big brother, the words Ghost Doctor are printed on the bottom of this bottle. Who is this Ghost Doctor? Is it mother? Muchen asked. Something seemed to be faintly floating in his mind, but when he thought about it carefully, his head started to hurt again. Ouch! He put down the bottle and hugged his head with both hands. Little brother! Hao hurriedly went forward and hugged him. Don't think about it. You can't break the seal now. Don't think about it. Muchen gradually calmed down. A layer of cold sweat seeped out of his forehead as he looked at the bottle. But I feel that the Ghost Doctor on this bottle and these medicines are related to mother. These medicines were refined by mother and given to me by her. The Ghost Doctor should be referring to her. Hao stared at the bottle and said, it's just that, I don't know where we are now, but I know that our home is in the Phoenix Dynasty. The moment Muchen said the Ghost Doctor, that red figure once again appeared in his mind. Scenes flashed by, one name after another, but only their names were missing. Big brother, then when are we leaving here? Let's go out and find our way. We'll find our way home and go home by ourselves, okay? Ra looked at him with a pair of beautiful big eyes, her little face filled with excitement. Hao nodded and replied, okay, but we have to wait until I cultivate. If we go out now, I'm afraid that I won't be able to protect you if you encounter danger. Hearing his words, the 2 of them didn't say anything else. Instead, they helped him find what medicine he could take. Can this chi-gathering pill be taken? What is this for? And what is it for? Can this big brother eat it? The 2 little fellows asked while holding the pills. Even though they recognized the words, they didn't know what they were for. Meanwhile, in the palace of the Xinyuan Empire, Xinyuan Mose watched as Fengjiu flipped through books all day, trying to find a way to break the ancient blood array. She had lost a lot of weight. He sighed softly, walked up to her, and took the book from her hands. Don't look anymore. You haven't rested for a few days. You can't go on like this. Fengjiu paused, then said, 3 children, I don't know where they are suffering, how can I not worry? How can we not think of a way to break it? Actually, I had a premonition that this day would come. Chapter 44:03. Fengjiu was silent and didn't say anything. The two children's faded stars were lit up because she helped them form contracts with the ancient mythical beasts, allowing them to share their lives with the ancient mythical beasts. However, she also knew that even though she had caught contract beasts for the two children, things weren't over yet. Just like her, even though she had formed a contract with the ancient mythical beast, the Fire Phoenix, her journey was also full of trials and tribulations. In order for them to grow, they had to go through those dangers and difficulties. Even though they wanted to protect the two children by their side and block the dangers and tribulations for them, what was to come would come in the end. However, she didn't expect this day to come so early. Xianyuan Mose held her hand and said, "Don't worry too much. We should be glad that they have contracted beasts. Moreover, Hao disappeared with them. Maybe the three children are together." "Will they be together?" Fengjiu looked at him with some uncertainty. He held her hand tightly and said, "Don't worry. They have a lot of good fortune and will definitely turn misfortune into blessing. Moreover, these 2 days, I've been thinking that the Demon Lord's blood curse ancient array broke the bloodline bond between the children and us. Therefore, I think that without our blood in Hao's body, the power of the blood curse ancient array will be greatly weakened." Seeing her tense expression and looking at him, he said, "However, this is only my guess. Right now, we don't know which world they are in. Therefore, I think that instead of waiting here, we should go out and look for them. Even if the 3,000 worlds are in different worlds, as long as we have the heart, we will definitely find them one day. But let's go out and look for them. We'll look for them one by one." She stood up and said, "I'll pack up and prepare now." With that, she turned and walked into the room. Xianyuan Mose didn't stop her. He only looked at her figure entering the room and then withdrew his gaze. Half of what he said was to comfort her, and the other half was his guess. Where were the three children now? None of them knew. These days, they had tried many methods, but to no avail. There was no response from the communication jades that he sent to the three kids. He hadn't heard from them in the past few days, but Fengjiu was getting thinner day by day. He knew that he couldn't let it go on like this. Instead of letting her stay here and wait, flipping through books all day long, it would be better to take her everywhere to search. At least this way, she would have a trace of hope and expectation every day. "Yama Lord." Du Fan walked in and bowed to him. "You came at the right time. I have something to tell you." As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he looked at him and said, "It's already been a few days since the three children's matter. The Feng Manor still doesn't know about it. Go back personally and tell them about it. As for the Black Tortoise Sovereign, Gio and I will go there personally. Also, Gio and I plan on going out to look for the children. There's no need for you to follow." Hearing this, Du Fan was slightly startled. "Yama Lord, do you only plan to leave with my master? Why don't you bring 1 or 2 people with you?" Chapter 4404. Okay, I know. Seeing that he had made up his mind, Du Fan didn't say anything more and retreated after giving a salute. On the other side, the three children were still in that deep mountain. They had already stayed here for several days and gradually got used to the environment here. It was worth mentioning that in these few days, Hao had been practicing his barbecue skill. Although he couldn't make the barbecue taste like the barbecue his mother made in his memory, but compared to the first time, he had already improved a lot. They also didn't need to go hunting because that Wolf King would bring them prey. Because he was worried that he couldn't protect the two little ones, Hao also taught Shen and Yu to practice these few days in addition to his own practice. However, their spiritual power was unable to recover, so he could only teach them some martial skills. "Big brother, I seem to have learned this before, I know it." Shen looked at the set of fist techniques he was making and felt very familiar. Immediately, he followed suit and made every punch just right. "Daddy should have taught you before. This fist technique was taught to me by Daddy." Hao said with a smile on his little face. Seems to know it too." Said with her little head tilted and also followed suit. "Well, you two practice by yourselves. I'll go over there and practice under the tree. You two don't go too far. If there's anything, just call me." Hao told them to practice by themselves. He went over to the tree, sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to practice. The two little guys also practiced seriously because these days their big brother told them that their daddy and mommy weren't by their side. If they encountered bad people, they had to think of a way to protect themselves. Therefore, they had to practice well and couldn't be lazy. In the deep mountain forest, the climate was relatively humid. Although there was sunshine, but the air was always a bit more damp. The two children practiced for the whole morning. Their clothes were wet with sweat and felt very uncomfortable. Because they didn't wash, it was more like something was biting their body. Big brother, is itchy here. Slightly twisted her little body and wanted to scratch her back, but she couldn't. Here. Helped her scratch the itch and asked. No, a little more to the left, a little more. Yes, it's right there. The little one's beautiful eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. So comfortable, big brother, grab again, grab again. Giggled. Seeing this, China said, I'll take you to wash up. It won't itch anymore after I wash it. Bathe? But the water there is very small, so you can't bathe there. Said while looking at her brother. Then wipe it, or call big brother. Let's find a bigger water source. We haven't bathed for a few days. As Muchin spoke, he noticed that his clothes were no longer the original color. He couldn't help but frown. But big brother is cultivating. Looked at Hao, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Thinking for a bit, she said, How about we go by ourselves? Muchin was a little tempted, but in the end he shook his head. Big brother will be worried if we go alone. He said that we have to tell him where we are going, or he won't be able to find us. Then let's go and call big brother. Trotted forward. Big brother, wants to take a bath. Chapter 4405. Okay, let's go look. After we find it, we'll take a bath and leave this place. He stood up and looked around. Wolf King, come here. At the same time, he waved his hand. When the Wolf King heard his voice, it crawled up from the grass. Seeing him waving at it, it paused for a moment before carefully walking over and howling in a low voice. Lie down. Hao patted its rear, and the Wolf King lay down. Come, sit on its back. We'll ride it to look for it. As Hao spoke, he carried Chin to the front and then carried to sit on it. He sat at the back. Little brother, hold on to its fur and don't fall. You have to clamp its body with your legs. Hao taught him from behind. Okay. Muchin responded and lay down slightly. His hands tightly gripped the Wolf King's fur and his legs clamped tightly on its body. In response, the Wolf King looked back at them and did not move. It just waited for them to sit properly. Carried Shinur in front and Hao at the back stretched out his hands to protect them so that they would not fall in the process of running. Go to the front. Hao clamped its waist like riding a horse and shouted. The Wolf King rushed out like the wind, followed by 7 or 8 wolves. Ha! So fun, so fun. Giggled happily, not knowing fear at all. Chin's eyes also sparkled as he looked ahead. The Wolf King ran very fast and the wind in front of them was also strong. They only felt very happy as they watched the trees around them quickly pass by. Fortunately, they were deep in the forest and there were very few people around. Otherwise, ordinary people would probably be scared half to death if they saw 3 children riding wolves in the forest. After walking around the forest for a while, they found a large mountain spring. Thus, the 3 children prepared to wash their dirty bodies here. Big brother, what if you doesn't have clean clothes to wear after bathing? The little one blinked and looked at him. She realized that her big brother had a solution for everything. It's okay. You go down and wash first. After washing, wear my clothes. I'll help you wash your clothes and then dry them. Howard said. Seeing that Chin couldn't untie his belt, he went forward and said, Let me do it. When Muchin saw that the belt that he had been trying to untie for a long time was untied, he thanked him happily. Thank you, big brother. Hurry up and wash up, but you can't wash for too long. The spring water is too cold. You'll get sick if you wash for too long. Hao looked at the sun above. Fortunately, it was noon and the temperature was warmer. But the 2 little guys responded. Muchen took off his clothes first and shyly covered the little bird between his legs as he got into the water. Er pulled her knotted hair and shouted, "Big brother, my hair is knotted." How? Was in the process of putting away Chen-er's clothes to one side. After hearing Yu-er's words, he saw that she had taken off her outer garment and was standing there pulling her hair while wearing only a small inner garment. So he said, "Big brother will help you wash your hair first. Come here." Obediently walked over and was carried by him. Her body was laid flat on his lap, and her head was slightly lowered, dipping into the spring water. "Wash your face first. It will be a little cold." "How?" Said and carefully wiped her little face with a small handkerchief. After letting her adapt to the spring water, he helped her wash her hair. Chapter 4406. After washing the two little guys' clothes, he used his spiritual power in his palm to help them dry their clothes. Watching him dry their clothes, the two little guys couldn't help but widen their eyes. "Amazing!" Hearing this, How revealed a smile. "Only a little of my strength has recovered. If I fully recover, I will be even more powerful." As he spoke, he helped them put on the dry clothes. However, there was another problem. Chen's hair was easy to tie up, but he didn't know how to tie up Yu-er's hair. Chen looked at his elder brother who had been tying Yu-er's hair for a long time but still couldn't tie it up properly. Finally, when he saw him tie Yu-er's hair into two crooked little horns, he couldn't help but exhale softly. Although it was a little strange, at least it was tied up properly. Yu-er hasn't tied up the little horns before. "Brother, does it look good?" The little one excitedly touched the two little horns on her head and looked at her brother. Chen-er glanced at it and nodded. "It looks good. It was just a little strange. Come, eat another pill." How-er took out another pill for them and stuffed it into their mouths. "Big brother, it's useless for us to eat this every day," said, but still swallowed the pill. "Whether it's useful or not, it's better to eat it. What if you can condense spiritual power in your body?" After feeding them the pill, How-er filled some water and was about to take them away when he saw Muchen sitting there holding his stomach with a strange expression. He was shocked and hurried forward. "Little brother? What's wrong? Is your stomach uncomfortable?" Muchen held his stomach and felt a warm aura surging inside, but it didn't seem to be from his stomach, but it felt inexplicably familiar. "Big brother, I seem to have sensed spiritual power." As he spoke, the strange expression on his delicate little face gradually dissipated, leaving only calmness. "Really?" How-er was delighted and hurriedly said, "Let me see." He reached out to feel his pulse and released his spiritual power. Sure enough, he felt a wisp of spiritual power flowing in his body. "Great, great." How-er's little face was full of excitement. "My stomach is also warm, as if something is walking around inside," said with a pair of big eyes. She felt a little strange because this aura felt familiar to her. "Quick, eat another pill." How-er immediately took out a chi-gathering pill from his space and gave one to each of them. None of the three little fellows had thought that their spiritual energy would recover so quickly. However, it was their bodies that were regenerating their spiritual energy, not the seal being broken. If there was a reason, it could only be attributed to the two children's innate spiritual bodies and the effects of the energy-gathering pill. Originally, they planned to find a way to leave today, but because Mu Chen and Mu Yu sensed spiritual energy again, their journey was delayed again. Today, they didn't leave. Instead, under How-er's guidance, they repracticed the most basic cultivation techniques. Chapter 4407. The Wolf King looked at him and walked forward. With a low howl, it lay down in front of him. How-er patted the Wolf King's head and said, "Thank you for these days. This pill is for you." He stuffed the pill into the Wolf King's mouth. It wasn't a rare medicinal pill, but it was a medicinal pill refined by his mother. It could be considered as a reward for the Wolf King protecting them and hunting for prey for them these past few days. "Awoo!" The Wolf King swallowed the pill and excitedly howled. It rubbed its head against his palm. How-er withdrew his hand and led the two little guys along the mountain path. The Wolf King watched from behind until they could no longer be seen. It howled 3 times and leaped back into the mountains. The 3 children walked along the mountain path until noon. The scorching sun above their heads made them sweat from time to time. Thus, the 3 of them rested under a tree by the roadside. "Little sister, drink some water?" How? Took out some water from his space and handed it to her. After you finished drinking, she handed it back to him. "Big brother, drink too." "Little brother, drink some water." "Drink more." How? Passed the water to him. After he drank it, he drank some himself and took out some dried meat for them to eat. After resting, the 3 of them continued walking. However, after walking for a while, How? Noticed that Yu was walking with a slight limp. He stopped and asked, "Little sister, what's wrong with your foot?" Yu hesitated for a moment before whispering, "My foot hurts." "Where does it hurt? Let me take a look." How? Said and led her to the side of the road to sit down. He helped her take off her boots and socks. His little face tightened. He saw that there were 3 or 4 bloody blisters on her white and tender feet. Each blister was the size of a finger. Her toes were also red, but she did not make a sound. He couldn't help but feel sorry for her. He patted her head and said, "Be good. Big brother will help you remove the blisters. After applying some medicine, it won't hurt anymore." Mu Chen, who was at the side, pursed his little mouth tightly, and his eyes were filled with nervousness and worry. When he saw his big brother taking out something to help Yu to break the blood blisters, he walked forward and hugged Yu's little head to his bosom, while saying, "It won't hurt. If you don't look, it won't hurt." Yu was lying in Mu Chen's embrace, her small hands clutching his clothes. Her legs were propped on her big brother's thighs. She couldn't see, but she felt a burst of pain and couldn't help but cry out. "It'll be fine after a while." How? Used clean water to wash her. After cleaning her, he applied the medicine and carefully tied her up with a small piece of cloth to prevent her skin from being scratched. "All right," Hauker said. "Don't wear boots first. Big brother will carry you." Yu blinked her eyes, and with an adorable expression on her delicate little face, she blankly said, "But it is very heavy." How? Saw her little appearance and couldn't help but find it funny. He said, "It's not heavy. Big brother can carry you. Come." He turned his back and squatted down with his hands behind his back. He said to Mu Chen, "Little brother, take my boots. Don't lose them." Mu Chen responded and helped Yu onto his back. Then he took the boots and walked beside them. Chapter 44:08. The little one smiled and squinted his eyes, obediently lying on his back. Along the way, he happily chatted with the 2 of them. After walking for a long time, he asked, "Big brother, are you tired?" "Yu can come down and walk by herself." "Not tired, big brother can carry me." How? Said and shook his head. "Then Yu will help big brother wipe his sweat." She saw sweat on his forehead and used her sleeve to help him wipe it. Feeling the little one's clumsy little hand randomly wiping his forehead, Hauer's eyes flashed with a touch of warmth. "If you are hungry or thirsty, tell big brother." "Yes, yes." The 2 nodded in response. They walked and rested all the way. When the sky gradually darkened, they saw a small village. "There is a small village in front." Excitedly pointed to the front and said, "How?" Rinchen also showed a smile. After walking for a whole day, they had been walking along the mountain road until now when they saw people. "Let's go take a look and inquire about where this place is." How? Said and carried Yu and took Chen to turn a corner and walked along the mountain road to the small village. At this time, it was evening. In this remote mountain village, more than 10 families were cooking. Smoke rose from the chimneys and the fragrance of the food also spread. Coming to the village, smelling the fragrance of the food from each family, the eyes of the 3 children who had been eating barbecued meat for several days could not help but brighten. "It smells so good." Urs sniffed with her small nose and smelled the fragrance of the food with a greedy face. "Big brother, let little sister sit here for a while." Mu Chen pointed to a stone next to him and said, "How?" agreed and put her down. he said to the two children, "You two wait for me here, I will go ahead and ask." After telling them not to run around, he went to the front of the house. Where did the children come from? A woman in her 30s came out and splashed the water in her hand in front of the door. She saw the three children at the entrance of the village. This place was remote and usually very few people came here. The more than 10 families in the village were familiar with each other, and at this time, hearing the woman's words, the people in the next house stretched out half of their body to look. There are really children? Where did they come from? Why don't I see my lord? Another woman in her 40s said. She walked out and looked around. Seeing that there were no adults, only the three children, she couldn't help but feel strange. How? Didn't have much contact with people in the past. Coupled with his cold personality, he looked indifferent at such a young age. However, he was handsome and had an outstanding temperament. At a glance, one could tell that he wasn't a child from an ordinary family. Among the villagers who gradually gathered around, there were women, men, and old people. Finally, an old man with a wooden walking stick in his hand stroked his beard and looked at how. He asked, "Child, where are you from? Where is my lord?" How's gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on the old man. He cupped his hands and bowed respectfully. "Grandpa, my younger brother and sister were separated from our family. Can you let us rest here for the night?" Separated? Chapter 4409. The old man turned around and looked at the woman next to him. "Old woman, don't we still have an empty house? Tidy it up and let the three children rest." The old woman in her 50s or 60s responded with a smile. Her face was full of kindness. "You can come to my house to rest. I am the village chief of this village. My house is behind there." The old man pointed to the house behind and said with a smile, "I have 2 grandsons at home who are about the same age as you." "Thank you, Grandpa Village Chief." Thanked him. As soon as his voice fell, 2 young voices came from the side. "Thank you, Grandpa Village Chief. Moochin helped move you over." He had already put on his boots, but he still walked with a limp. Good, let's go. Come to my house. It just so happens that my family is cooking. Let's eat together." He looked at the 3 children with pity in his heart. Children of this age were about the same age as his grandsons, but they were wandering outside. It was really pitiful. The people of the remote mountain village were also simple. When they saw the 3 children wandering outside, they also felt pity for them. When they saw that the 3 children were so delicate and their behavior was so different from ordinary children, they were even more envious. They really didn't know what kind of people their parents were. They actually gave birth to such well-behaved and sensible children. Looking at the 3 children and then comparing them with their own brats, the parents could only shake their heads helplessly and bitterly. Originally, they felt that their children were well-behaved and sensible, but compared with others, they really couldn't be compared. Eating at the old village chief's house, watching the 3 children eat a big bowl of rice and drink a bowl of soup, the old village chief and his wife looked at each other and secretly thought that these 3 children were probably starving. "Eat slowly. If it's not enough, there's still more," the old village chief said and gave them some vegetables and meat. "Thank you, Grandpa Village Chief. You is full." You finished eating the rice and vegetables in the bowl. Touching her full stomach, she smiled and narrowed her beautiful eyes. "It's good that you're full. You can't eat too much at night, otherwise it won't be easy to digest." The old village chief smiled as he looked at the cute little girl. He couldn't help but pat her head and said kindly, "In a while, you 2 go take a bath and then go to sleep. Have a good rest." And answered with a beaming smile. "You've just eaten, so don't take a bath. You can go later. The water is already boiling at the back. You can take a bath in a while," the old woman said as she brought over a small stool for them to sit and rest. "Where is your home?" "This village is still far from the town. It will take you a long time to reach the town by yourself," the old village chief said, looking at the 3 of them. Hearing what was said, Chen and Yu both didn't speak, but instead looked at their eldest brother at the same time. Thought for a moment and said, Grandpa Village Chief, have you heard of the Phoenix Dynasty? Hearing this, Village Chief stroked his beard and frowned in contemplation. Phoenix Dynasty? He shook his head. I've never heard of it. What kind of place is that? Is it very far from Jian and Nation? Hearing Jian and Nation that he had never heard of before, Hao's eyes flashed. He was silent for a moment and asked again, then, Grandpa Village Chief, have you heard of the Ghost Doctor? Chapter 44:10. The old village chief looked at the three of them and said, Why are you asking this? If you want to find someone or a place, wait until you return home and let your parents find it. Hao's eyes flashed and said, I heard my mother say that there are immortals who cultivate in the Phoenix Dynasty. Moreover, the Ghost Doctor is a very powerful person, so I'm very curious. Immortals? The old man laughed while stroking his beard. He shook his head and looked at the three of them, saying, You are children. How can there be immortals who cultivate in this world? Those are all legends. The three children were stunned. Their hearts tightened and they faintly felt uneasy. Said, But there really are immortals. My mother said so. She insisted that there were immortals and looked at him nervously with her beautiful eyes. Your mother must have coaxed you. Immortals, that's a legend. I've lived for more than half of my life and went to many places when I was young, but I've never heard of the existence of immortals. Those are all stories, legends, lies. The old village chief smiled and waved his hand. Grandpa Village Chief means that there are no immortals in Jian and country? Hao looked at him and secretly clenched his little hands. That's natural. If there are immortals, then there won't be birth, old age, illness, and death. The village chief smiled and said, You children don't understand. If there are immortals in this world, no one wants to die. Everyone wants to become an immortal. Tell me, is that still the way of the world? He stroked his beard and smiled, saying, I've lived to this age. What immortals? They've never appeared. I've only heard those people make up some nonsense and say that it's some legend passed down. Actually, how can there be immortals in this world? There aren't any. The three children didn't say anything. They just looked at each other and felt a little uncomfortable in their hearts. There were actually no immortal cultivators in this place? Would their parents be able to find them? How are they going to get back? All right. You guys, quickly go take a bath and have a good rest. Stay here for a few days first. In a few days, the village will transport some firewood to the town to sell. At that time, you can take the donkey cart with you. That way, you don't have to walk. The old village chief smiled and stood up. Hearing the three children talk about immortals, he only felt that it was funny. If there were immortals in this world, then everyone would want to become an immortal. However, immortals were only legends. No one had ever seen one. As soon as the old village chief left, 2 7- or 8-year-old boys came to their side and looked at them curiously. Are there really immortals? We've never heard Grandpa talk about immortals. What do immortals look like? Have you seen him before? Hao and the other two looked at each other, stood up and said, We're going to bathe and sleep. At night, 3 children were lying on a big bed, but all 3 of them were unable to sleep. They opened their eyes and looked at the pitch-black top of the bed. Yer tossed and turned, and couldn't help but sit up, then softly said in a soft voice, Big brother, why did Grandpa Village Head say that there is no immortal? Can we still go back to find father and mother? Can we still go home? Muchin also sat up and said, There is, but they have never seen it. Chapter 44:11. Because Yu's foot blisters had not yet healed, and the village head said that they would have a donkey cart to go to town in a few days, Hao and the rest stayed here for a few more days. The folk customs in the village were simple. Seeing that the 3 children were handsome and delicate, they treated them well. Whoever had something to eat at home would give them some. On this day, the 2 grandsons of the village head came to the door of Hao's room with a few eggs. Sister we brought you some food. Ting came out to open the door and his gaze fell on the eggs in their hands. Yu poked her head out from behind. When she saw the 2 of them, She smiled and squinted her eyes. She was very likable. Brother Do Wa, Brother Air Wa. Here, these are the eggs that Grandma just cooked. We brought some for you. The two children handed the eggs in their hands to them and asked, "Do you want to go out and play with us?" Mu Chen and Yu took the eggs, thanked them and shook their heads. Hearing this, the two children were a little strange and said, "You don't go out every day and just stay in the room like this. Children should go out and play more often." No, you and brother have to memorize. We don't want to play. The little one smiled and squinted his eyes. Brother Dowa, Brother Erwa, go and play. We're going in. Okay then. Seeing that they were not going out to play, the two children did not say anything more and left after giving them the eggs. Seeing them leave, Mu Chen and Mu Yu looked at each other, closed the door, and returned to their room. After putting the eggs aside, they sat cross-legged on the bed and cultivated like their brother. Their brother said that even if there were no immortals here, they had to cultivate every day and improve their strength to protect themselves. Tomorrow, the people in the village would go to town. At that time, they would also follow and go outside to find the way home. Thinking of what their brother said to them, maybe if their spiritual aura was strong enough, they would be able to break the seal in their bodies one day. They did not dare to be lazy and obediently followed to cultivate. Outside, the village head and his wife were sitting in front of the door, picking vegetables and chatting. "Old man, look at the three children, they don't go out of the room. What do you think they are doing inside? They are so young, how can they stay in the room?" The village head looked back at the backyard while smoking a hookah and said, "These three children are not from an ordinary family. They are so obedient and sensible that it makes one's heart ache." That's right. Tell me, how could such sensible children be separated from their families? Moreover, it's in a remote place like ours. It sounds weird. Haha. The old village head chuckled and said, "Who knows what is going on? But these days, I've been thinking. The three of them are so young. If they go out, they will easily encounter danger." The old woman was worried. Chapter 44:12. Their parents are really too much. Their children are wandering outside. Why didn't they send someone to look for them? Sigh, they're really open-minded. The old woman picked up the vegetables she had chosen and said, "I'm going to cook. There's soup inside. It's just right to nourish the children's bodies." The next day, before dawn, several men were busy at the village gate, folding bundles of firewood and putting them on the donkey cart. How? And the other two watched from the side. A man next to them smiled and said, "Village chief, why do you want to go to the town? If you want to buy anything, just let us know. We can buy it back. You don't have to run back and forth like this." Sigh, it's because my legs and feet have been acting up these few days. I need to go to the town to have a look. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep at night because of the soreness. The old village chief said to the old woman beside him, "Oh, go back. We can make it back by night. Be careful on the road. Go early and come back early." The old woman said and stuffed the pancakes she had made into Hao's hands for them to eat on the road. Come, sit up here." The man carried you onto the donkey cart. When he was about to carry Chenu said, "I can do it myself." With that, he climbed up by himself. Hao saw him climb up and also sat up. The old village chief and the man driving the donkey cart sat in front. "Sit down, we're setting off." The man shouted and threw the target in his hand. He drove the donkey cart along the mountain path. After watching the donkey cart leave, the old woman returned to the house. The old woman couldn't sleep anymore, so she went to tidy up the house where the three children had stayed for a few days. However, she didn't expect to see a shiny gold coin on the table. This is? The old woman was startled. She picked it up and looked carefully. She couldn't help but be surprised. How could there be a gold coin? This gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins. For ordinary people like them, this was a lot of money. On the way, Hao sat cross-legged in the back and cultivated. The old village chief and the man sitting in front knew that they were sitting in the back and didn't worry about anything else. They just chatted with them from time to time. At the back, Yue and Muchen were eating pancakes when they heard the hushed voice coming from the front. Village chief, I heard from them that the road has not been peaceful these days. A few passers-by even died a while ago. Bandits again? Logically speaking, this area is a remote and desolate place, so there shouldn't be any bandits. I heard that he's a murderer who fled here to seek refuge. The terrain here is complicated, so it's not easy for the authorities to catch him. Look, he's now a scourge to the common people. The brother and sister ate the biscuits as they spoke in low voices. After an unknown amount of time, the donkey cart suddenly stopped. Immediately after, there was the sound of swords clashing against each other. Looking at the dozen or so people who suddenly appeared in front of them and surrounded them, the old village chief and the man's faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Mountain bandits. Ha! I was worried that no one would come knocking on my door in the next few days. What are you waiting for? Get off the car. Take out all the money. The man in the lead laughed loudly with his hands on his hips. He ordered people to drag the old village chief and the man off the donkey cart. Chapter 44:13. Hearing this, the old village chief panicked and hurriedly said, Sir, those are my 3 grandsons. Please be magnanimous. Get lost. The leader of the bandits kicked the village chief to the ground and gestured, Bring those 3 brats down. However, when the 2 bandits reached out to pull you down from the donkey cart, Muchen, who was beside you, picked up a branch and hit the hand that was reaching for her. Hiss! The bandit cried out in pain and retracted his hand. When he saw the brat hit him with a branch, his eyes flashed with murderous intent. Brat, you're courting death. His other hand viciously slashed at Muchen. Clang. At that moment, Hao stepped forward and pulled out the dagger on his leg to block the knife that was slashing towards his younger brother. A hidden force surged in his hand, and at the same time, the dagger in his hand was slashed towards his younger brother's neck. Hiss! The speed was so fast that the bandit didn't even have time to react. He only sucked in a breath of cold air before his eyes widened and he fell backwards in fear. His body fell to the ground and blood seeped out from his neck, staining the sand red. Everyone outside was stunned. However, Hao's hand trembled as he held the dagger tightly. His small face was cold and stern as he stared at the dead bandit on the ground with determination and coldness in his eyes. He spoke clearly to his sisters-in-law, who were staring at the scene with wide eyes. Mother said to never show mercy to those who want to kill you. Before they can kill you, you have to kill them first. He took a deep breath and looked at Muchen and Muyu. Do you remember? Yes. The 2 little guys recovered. Although there was a trace of fear in their eyes, it was more of determination. The village chief and the leader looked at the bandit on the ground in shock. They watched him twitch on the ground until he breathed his last. In just a short while, they could not help but hold their breaths and look at the 3 children who came out from behind the curtain. When the leader saw his brother killed, he thought that there was someone powerful hiding in the donkey cart. He did not expect that there were only 3 children coming out from behind the curtain. Among the 3 children, the oldest was no more than 8 or 9 years old, and the youngest was no more than 3 years old. However, they looked very delicate and outstanding. With one look, one could tell that they were not the old man's grandchildren as the old man had said. However, at this moment, the older child was holding a dagger in his hand and looking at him with a stern little face. That kind of gaze made him feel an inexplicable chill in his heart, but after he recovered, he felt a little embarrassed and angry. He was actually intimidated by an 8 or 9-year-old child. Damn it! What are you waiting for? Capture them for me. The man in the lead shouted as he waved his knife and ordered his men to step forward. Take care of yourselves. How? Said and held the dagger tightly in his hand. In the next moment, his figure flashed forward. Even if his cultivation hadn't recovered, with his body movements and the training he had received, his instinctive attacks were already unstoppable for those lowly bandits. How? Did not leave anyone alive and slaughtered the dozen or so bandits one by one. When the leader saw the dead people on the ground, his face turned pale with fright and he turned to run. Chapter 44:14. He's flying. The old village chief and the burly man were dumbfounded. They could only see a visible stream of air condensing under his feet. Then, with a tap of his foot, he flew more than 10 meters away. Just as the burly man was about to attack with his dagger, the bandit suddenly turned around and raised his hand. Shoo! An arrow shot out from his sleeve. Whoosh! How? Quickly dodged. His body's instinctive reaction had already evaded when he sensed danger. At the same time, he attacked with his palm. The 8 or 9-year-old child hit the bandit several meters away. Pfft. The bandit spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He looked in horror at the child who was walking towards him step by step. Who are you? How? Didn't speak. Instead, he stepped forward and slit the bandit's throat. When the old village chief and the burly man saw this, their legs went soft and they fell to the ground. Their bodies were trembling. They didn't know if it was because they saw more than 10 bandits dead, or because they were frightened by How's ruthlessness, or because they saw something they shouldn't have seen. No one knew that How's hands were trembling. After he killed the last bandit, he didn't stand up for a long time. Until the 2 little fellows trotted to his side. Big brother, how are you? Her soft voice was filled with unconcealable concern. 2 identical little faces looked at him worriedly. Hearing their voices, How took a deep breath and turned around. I'm fine. Grandpa village chief and the others seemed to be frightened. You? Obediently tugged at How's sleeve, indicating for him to look at the 2 people sitting on the ground. Grandpa village chief, uncle. How? Walked over and looked at them. The 2 looked at him with complicated expressions. How he? Grandpa village chief, if I didn't kill them, they would have killed us. How's little face was cold. He said, my brother and sister are still young. They can't protect themselves, so I have to protect them. Moreover, my mother said to never show mercy to those who want to kill us. So, they all have to die. The village chief and the burly man also knew that those bandits killed people without batting an eyelid. However, when they saw those bandits, who killed without batting an eyelid, being killed by a child who was not even 10 years old, they still found it unbelievable. Were all the children of the aristocratic families out there already so powerful? Also, they seemed to have seen him fly up earlier. Grandpa village chief, uncle, my big brother is a good person, they are bad people. You, stepped forward, and hugging How's hand, she said to the 2 people who were paralyzed on the ground, my big brother is really a good person, you don't need to be afraid of him. The tender voice entered their ears softly. This made the old village chief and the burly man feel guilty. The old village chief hurriedly said, we're not afraid of him. It's just that we've never seen so many people die. We can't get over it all of a sudden. As he spoke, the old village chief stood up with his walking stick and said, we have to deal with these corpses. Thus, he got the burly man beside him to help. Chapter 44:15. How? Thought for a moment and took the money from the small bag. He took out some of it and handed it to them. Grandpa village chief, uncle, this is for you. This won't do. They hurriedly waved their hands. We didn't do anything. How can we take these things? No, you can keep it for yourselves. Take it. How? Stuffed it into their hands and said, let's go quickly. Seeing this, the burly man looked at the village chief and then looked at the money in his hands. He was a little troubled. Just take it. The old village chief thought for a moment and let him take it. He then reminded him, you're young. Remember not to show your wealth, lest you be targeted in the future. How? Nodded in response. They got on the donkey cart and continued to head in the direction of the town. Along the way, the old village chief and the burly man had many things to ask, but every time the words reached their mouths, they swallowed them back. There were some things that they should not know. It was better for them not to ask. Knowing too much was not a good thing. The donkey cart moved slowly. It was not fast, but as time passed bit by bit, they arrived at the town near noon. Look, this is the town. This town is very big. Many of the nearby villages are in the same market as this town. The old village chief looked back at the three of them and asked, "What do you plan to do when you reach the town?" The two little ones naturally looked at how. They were still young and could not make up their minds. Naturally, they would wait for their elder brother to decide. "We'll see when the time comes," Howard said. In fact, he did not have any plans yet. He had to see the situation first. When they entered the town and came to a corner, the old village chief asked, "Can we get off here?" "Yes, let's get off here." As Howard spoke, he got off the donkey cart and carried his younger brother and sister down. Then he respectfully bowed to the two of them. "Thank you, Grandpa Village Chief and Uncle." The two of them hurriedly turned to the side to avoid him. "We don't dare." Although they knew that their identities were not ordinary and that they were just a few children, their hearts still skipped a beat when they thought of the scene on the road. They did not dare to accept their bow. "Grandpa Village Chief, Uncle will be going then." Her soft voice was full of smiles. Her delicate and cute little face overflowed with a pleasant smile. "She was really very cute. You must be careful and take good care of yourselves." The old village chief could only say so. In reality, even if they wanted to help them, they couldn't. Thus, Howard left with Mu Chen and Mu Yu. He watched them curiously look left and right as they walked into the street. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that such young children could kill more than a dozen bandits. On the street, was happily looking at the things on the stalls. Especially when she saw some trinkets, she couldn't take a step forward and directly stood on her tiptoes to look at them. Chapter 44:16. Hearing this, the little one's eyes lit up and couldn't help but look up at her two elder brothers. Seeing this, Howard showed a doting smile and reached out to touch her little head, saying, "If you wants it, then let's buy it." As he spoke, he saw that Chen was also staring at the clay figurines, so he said to the peddler, "Make one for each of them according to their appearance." "Okay, just wait for a while." The peddler was delighted and immediately used various colored clay figurines to make them according to their appearance. After a while, a small clay figurine wearing a pink dress with two small buns on its head was made. The peddler smiled and handed it over. "Come, little girl, this is yours." Looking at the lifelike clay figurine, smiled happily. "It really looks like a little me." She looked up at Howard and asked, "Big brother, don't you want it?" Howard shook his head. "Big brother doesn't want it." After a while, the peddler handed another clay figurine to Chen, saying, "Here, this is yours." Chen took it. Although his little face looked like a little adult, it was difficult to hide his joy. He carefully held it and looked at it carefully, and found that it really looked like a little person. Howard paid the money and took them away, saying, "Big brother will take you to eat something. After eating, if you want to walk around, Big brother will accompany you." "You wants to eat drumsticks." "You?" happily said, holding Howard's hand. Howard responded and looked at Mu Chen, asking, "What about Chen?" "I'm fine with anything," the little one said, indicating that he was not picky. The three well-dressed and exquisite children walking on the street were very eye-catching, but they didn't know it. They walked and strolled all the way until they came to a high-end restaurant. At the corner of the street, a few people who were leaning against the wall and eating melon seeds looked at each other. After revealing a malicious smile, they continued to stare outside the restaurant. "Those three children are really not ordinary good-looking, and I saw that there are no adults or guards following them." One of them said, "These three children don't look like children from ordinary families. Looking at the material of their clothes, I guess they should be from a big family, right? Are we really going to pick on these people? What's more, the older one looks to be almost 10 years old. Isn't he a little too old? He's already so sensible." The other person was a little hesitant. It's obvious that these three children are from other places. They don't have any adults by their side, and they look so exquisite and pretty. If we kidnap them, we can definitely sell them for a good price." As the leader of the group spoke, his eyes flashed. He was calculating in his heart, "Forget about the older one. She's old and sensible, so it's not easy to sell her. But the two little ones, with their delicate appearance, I'll definitely fight to buy her." But, if he really is a disciple of some aristocratic family, wouldn't it be? Another person was still a little worried. That person glanced at him and said, "In our line of work, why would we be afraid of being investigated? To earn this kind of money, you have to take this kind of risk. What can you accomplish if you shrink back and do things?" After being reprimanded, the man couldn't help but lower his head and ask in a low voice, "Then what should we do?" Chapter 44:17. At the same time, the three children in the restaurant did not know that they had been targeted. At this moment, the three of them were sitting in the restaurant. The waiter looked at them and asked with a smile, "Young master and young miss, what would you like to eat?" How? Earth thought for a bit and said, "Give us a few of the more delicious dishes in your restaurant, and also a stewed chicken soup and 3 bowls of rice." Then he asked, "Do you have any pastries?" Hearing this, the waiter was slightly surprised because he heard that they wanted 3 bowls of rice and saw that there were only 3 of them, but no adults were accompanying them. He suppressed his surprise and hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. Our restaurant's osmanthus cake and lotus cake are the most delicious. Do you want to order one of each?" "Okay, that's all." Howard said. "Okay, please sit for a while." The waiter was about to turn around and leave, but he stopped and asked, "Do you have any adults accompanying you?" "What's wrong?" Howard's face turned cold, and there was some displeasure in his eyes. The waiter was a waiter and was good at observing people's expressions. Seeing his face turn cold, he hurriedly said with a smile, "Young master, don't misunderstand. It's just that you don't have any adults accompanying you, and you ordered these dishes. Do you have money to pay?" Hearing this, Howard glanced at him and took out a money bag from his lapel and put it on the table. "Do you think I have money to pay?" Seeing that heavy money bag, the waiter immediately smiled and said, "Please wait a moment. The dishes will be served immediately." It was not that he wanted to ask this, but the restaurant's rules were like this. After all, they were also afraid of eating without paying. Not long after, the dishes were served one after another. Smelling the fragrance of the food, the 3 children had a big appetite. The 2 children were relatively short, so they couldn't reach the dishes on the table while sitting on the chair. Therefore, Howard called the waiter to bring 2 small stools for them to sit on. "Can eat a bit more." Howard helped them pick up the dishes and said, "Eat slowly, don't eat too fast." He also helped them ladle a bowl of soup and slowly ate by himself. Big brother, the dishes here are delicious." Smiled and narrowed her eyes. She pointed at the ribs in the middle and said, "I want to eat that." "Okay, I'll help you. Eat more if it's delicious." Howard looked at her cheeks bulging like a little squirrel and couldn't help but smile dotingly. "Chen, what do you want to eat?" "I'll help you." He looked at Mu Chen and asked. "No, I can." Mu Chen said he picked up the dishes himself. The 3 children were not accompanied by an adult, but they were eating on the 2nd floor of this high-end restaurant. Naturally, it attracted the attention and curiosity of many people, especially after seeing the 3 children's outstanding appearance. They were even more surprised. This kind of first-class appearance did not belong to ordinary people. Moreover, the material of the clothes on the 3 of them was also a rare high-quality material. However, looking at the 3 of them, the 3 of them looked very unfamiliar. They should not be local people. Across the table, an elegant man was drinking and chatting with a few friends. When he saw the 3 children, he also took a second look at them. His eyes were full of admiration and curiosity. Chapter 44:18. It's just that it's rare to see such sensible children, so I couldn't help but take a few more glances. The scholarly man smiled and said, "Speaking of which, it's been a while since we came out. It's time to go back." As he spoke, he smiled and retracted his gaze, taking a sip of wine. "Brother Pan, it's rare for you to come to E-City, and you've only stayed for 2 days. Why don't you stay for a few more days before leaving? After all, if you leave this time, who knows when you'll come back again?" A friend at the same table said as he poured wine for him. On this side, the people at the table were drinking wine and chatting. The man surnamed Pan was chatting with them, and occasionally, his attention would fall on the three children. There was no other reason other than the fact that the temperament of these three children was very outstanding. Their exquisite and outstanding appearances, coupled with that noble aura that could not be ignored, made him unable to imagine how such children could be produced in such a small place. No, not to mention that there were very few children like this in this city, even those aristocratic families, and even the children of nobles in the imperial capital, did not have as good a temperament as these three. In fact, to say something disrespectful, even the princes in the imperial palace could not compare to these three. It was because of this that he paid more attention to the three of them. However, he did not expect that this attention would make him even more curious. These three children did not have any adults accompanying them, and they clearly did not have any bodyguards or hidden guards protecting them. This was very strange. What kind of family would allow these three exquisite and outstanding children to go outside without protecting them? After all, this world was not very peaceful. For children like them who did not have the ability to protect themselves, especially with their eye-catching appearances, it was not very safe for them to be outside alone. "You guys drink, I'll be back soon," he smiled and said to his friends. With one hand holding a wine pot and the other holding a wine cup, he went to the table of the three children. At this time, the three children had already eaten their fill and were sitting down to rest. They saw a scholarly man wearing a white robe walk over and sit down at their table. The three children looked at him with their 6 eyes, not knowing why this person suddenly sat down. Pan Ning sat down and looked at the three children. Seeing that they were all staring at him, he couldn't help but smile. He took a sip of wine and asked, "Did the three of you sneak out of the house to play?" Hao pursed his lips, glanced at him, and said coldly, "What does that have to do with you?" Hearing this, Pan Ning raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but smile. "You're so young, but your aura is not bad. I can see that your background is not ordinary." Hearing these words, Yu blinked her eyes and looked at him, and with curiosity and surprise in her soft and sweet voice, she said, "Uncle, you are very awesome, to actually be able to see that our background is not ordinary." As soon as her soft voice fell, her beautiful eyes flashed cunningly, and she asked with a smile, "But uncle, do you know where we came from?" Listening to the little girl's soft words, Pan Ning was stunned for a moment, then he smiled happily. "Little girl, you're really interesting." He reached out his hand, wanting to tap the little one's nose, but was blocked by the little boy who looked exactly the same. "Don't touch my sister." Chen pulled a long face and shouted coldly. At the same time, he slapped his hand away. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.